Now they killed our people. So according to the Animal Act 1960, they are saying that the animal must be prevented for necessary things. So we are saying that those pigs must be taken away.
A man suspected of being involved in a cash-in-transit robbery in KwaZulu-Natal has been arrested at a police roadblock. Police believe the man is a member of a gang that bombed a cash-in-transit vehicle at Indwedwe, north of Durban. Police spokesperson Robert Chaunda says the man was found in possession of an AK-47 assault rifle, 2 handguns and cash in a backpack.
The suspect, who disguised himself as a family man by traveling with a woman and a young child, was arrested and duly charged with illegal possession of firearms and ammunition. The suspect is believed to be a member of a gang that bombed a cash-in-transit vehicle in Ndwedwe 2 weeks ago. The suspect will appear in the KwaDukuza Magistrate Court on Monday, the 2nd of September.
Nearly 40,000 Japanese people died alone in their homes in the first half of this year. The National Police Agency's released a report it hopes will shed more light on the social problem of people who die unattended at home after leading a lonely or isolated life. The BBC's Michael Bristow has more.
The figures released by the police show the vast numbers of people in Japan who live and die alone. Perhaps the most stark figure is that from January to June, 4,000 people went unmissed and unfound for a month after dying at home. 130 had been dead for at least a year before discovery. In April, the Japanese government introduced a bill aimed at tackling the growing problem of loneliness and isolation, partly caused by Japan's aging society, a demographic shift that's getting harder to manage.
Top story, former President Jacob Zuma and the MK Party's challenge of the SABC's use of the term Government of National Unity has been struck for want of urgency in the High Court in Johannesburg. That's SAFM News. I'm Greg Close.
Who says talking never solves anything? SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. This Week Today, Fridays, 6 to 7 p.m.
It has just gone 6 minutes after 6 o'clock. It's a Friday, and you know what time it is. It's time for This Week Today. My name is Oliver Dixon. Thank you so much for being with us. Really do appreciate it. We're coming to you live from our SABC studios in Bloemfontein in the Free State for another special broadcast, another installment of the SAFM University Debate Challenge. And this one is special. This is one of my favorite provinces in South Africa, but also just one of my favorite provinces back when I was a competitive university debater. And it's a fantastic moment to be back here where it really truly all started for me, myself. We've got 2 universities going up against each other today, Central University of Technology as well as the University of the Free State. And the topic that they will be debating tonight is a very interesting one. And I thought that it is one of those topics that requires us to really go back to the basics. And the topic for tonight's debate is, this house would ban the production, circulation, and broadcasting of music, movies, art, and other forms of audiovisual media that normalizes and/or glorifies violence, crime, and reckless sexual behavior. I'm going to read that one more time. Should we ban, effectively, is the question, the production, circulation, and broadcasting of music, movies, art, and other forms of audiovisual media that normalizes and/or glorifies violence, crime, and reckless sexual behavior. And on the proposing side in this debate, we have the Central University of Technology. Sorry, my apologies. On the proposing side, we have the University of the Free State, and we have the Central University of Technology on the opposing side of this debate. We're taking your questions, your comments, and your reactions to this debate. Give us a call. The number to dial is 086 000 2032. I'm going to say that again slowly. 086 000 2032. And you can also send us your WhatsApp voice notes on 0614 104 107. 0614 104 107. Of course, you can also just tweet me. It's at Oliver_speaking on Twitter, Oliver Dixon on Facebook. And you and I can engage there as well as we listen to these fantastic debaters go against each other in this debate. And of course, if you do send those WhatsApp voice notes, make sure they're short, under 1 minute, so that Snazo can put them through. Make sure it's hygienic so we can hear you as well, and not, a lot of noise in the background. And without any further ado, I want to call onto the podium the first speaker, the proposing speaker of the University of the Free State to open this debate, Romoana Nare. Can we give a round of applause for Romoana Nare?
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, honorable judges, and esteemed audience. We are here to discuss a matter of paramount importance to our nation, South Africa. The motion before us today reads, "This House will ban the production, circulation, and broadcasting of music, movies, art, and other forms of audiovisual media that normalizes and or glorifies violence, crime, and reckless sexual behavior. In the context of South Africa, a country that is grappling with high crime rate and also violence, this motion is not only relevant but also very necessary. South Africa today is inundated or overwhelmed with media that repeatedly portrays such behaviors, reckless sexual behaviors, and also crime. From TV films, blockbuster films, and also popular music, we see these themes present, but they show to us that they are also being celebrated. The normalization of these behaviors in media contributes to a culture where such behaviors are seen as acceptable or even deemed as admirable, especially by the younger generation. We as the proposing side believe that this is not just a matter of entertainment, not a matter of taste, but a matter of public safety and also a matter of societal well-being. When criminal behavior is portrayed as something beautiful or glamorized, it sends a message to the people that such actions are acceptable. This is particularly very dangerous to the younger generation. Numerous studies have shown that exposure to violent and sexually explicit content can lead to desensitization and reduced empathy and an increase in aggressive behaviors. So, by allowing this content to circulate, we undermine the value of public safety, the value of respect, integrity, and responsibilities that are essential for a functional society. A ban will reinforce these values, ensuring that media upholds and promotes ethical standards. By allowing such media to flourish unchecked, we send a mixed message to our citizens, particularly the younger generation. We tell them that while South Africa is fighting against crime, on this other hand, it permits the dissemination of of media that depicts these type of crimes. By the other side, we say now South Africa is fighting against violence, reckless sexual behaviors, but on the other side, South Africa is allowing an influence on the younger generation to the very same thing. This basically eradicates our idea. Pure, yes, thank you.
Under your case, are you saying that art is autonomous of human behavior?
Art is not autonomous of human behavior, but art is more of an expression. But somehow as people, we need to draw a line where freedom of expression or art of expression ends and societal values begins, right? So sometimes we have to prioritize our public safety because the younger generation are being influenced. And if we check at the statistics, the younger generations are the ones that usually view these medias, right? So if you want a South Africa, a better, safe South Africa, we need to take this into account. So we propose this ban not as an attack on freedom of expression, not as an attack on media, or not as an attack on art expression, but as a necessary measure to protect the mental health of the people and the societal well-being of our South Africans. Just as how we regulate the portrayal of smoking in media, recognizing their harmful impact, so too must we regulate the content that glorifies violence and reckless behaviors. So now, if we check the younger generation, as they continue to view such media, they now see such actions, criminal activities, as acceptable. Now, as I'm a young individual, impressionable, when I see someone getting rich due to crime, I feel like it's one of the ways to get rich. I don't even know the effect of working hard to get my richness. Yes.
Do you think like this banning will stop like violent activities and these activities from occurring within society?
Not really stop, but it will reduce. Right? Since this thing is playing as an influence towards these things, the influence is reduced. Even though we cannot stop it completely, someone can raise that we can educate and do this other stuff. But sometimes we can get rid of an influence that makes sure that even other people can continue to live in a safer environment because the influence is limited. We are setting boundaries on media. We are not cutting off media completely. We are setting boundaries, allowing people to express themselves, but also allowing these media to align with our national values and our very collective goal of having a better and safe South Africa. And I thank you. Is there any POI? Thank you.
Thank you very much to the first speaker on the proposing side, Ramoana Nare. We now welcome the first speaker of the opposing side to the podium, Masupa Porota.
All right. So, panel, what you get from government's case is something of a slippery slope, right? Because they don't exactly tell us what banning is going to achieve within the current status quo, right? They tell us that, oh yeah, well, we want to mitigate acts of violent behavior within society, right? But they don't actually show us how this ban is going to achieve that, right? So now we ask them in OPOI, do they believe that art is an extension of society? To which they agree, right? And we tell you that this fully actually works on the opposition side of the house, right? Because banning is not exactly what we need to be advocating for in today's debate, right? But what we need to be advocating for is regretting society and the way that it self-actualizes in and of itself, right? Because when you say that art is a representation of society, it means that the glorification of crime, the glorification of deviant sexual behaviors is actually inherently what some parts of society actually are, right? And panel, we tell you that in today's debate, what we need to achieve is we need to moralize the harm principle, right? By moralizing the harm principle, what do we then actually say in the context of today's debate? We actually tell you that we don't actually regret the art as an extension of human behavior, but we regret the inspirations and the behaviors of the individuals that actually put this art out into the world, right? Now, who are these individuals that we actually regret in today's debate, right? One, we regret the individuals, one, that inspire this art. Two, we regret the individuals that distribute this art. And three, we regret the individuals that actually consume this art, right? Why do we regret them? We regret them because, ladies and gentlemen, there needs to be a certain level of accountability that comes with what you put out into the world, right?
Can I get a POI?
Yeah, sure.
So you're talking about people that are inspiring these things, right? Like, now my question is, what's their inspiration also towards this thing of violence?
Put it simply, human nature, right? Your entire human history is riddled in blood. It's riddled in wars. It's riddled in pillaging, right? And this is why we actually regret society in and of itself, right? Because art is literally a depiction of this society, right? We tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that as individuals, within the context of this debate, as the opposing team, if you put the symbol of the swastika out there, right, as World War II is one of the most regretful sort of atrocities in history. We tell you that we value this symbol and we value this art, right? Why do we value this art? Because as a parent bringing up bringing up a child, the accountability of actually giving principles and proper morals to your children is up to you, right? You need this symbol of the swastika to actually be able to gauge when you are basically indoctrinating your children, because that's how our parents bring us up, through indoctrination, by teaching us the positive principles and the negative connotations that come with certain behaviors in society. When you put a swastika there, I actually want my child to know what the swastika represents, right? So that they can know why they shouldn't actually sort of associate themselves with that symbol, right? And this is why we value that actual symbol as a form of art, right? We tell you that, not taken, we tell you in today's debate, right, that when Bobby Schmurder actually comes, releases a song where he actually confesses to an actual crime and he actually gets arrested because of those rap lyrics, that is what we actually value in that art, because at the end of the day, social justice was served, right? So what we actually want to achieve in today's debate is to say that art in and of itself, as a representation of society, is a necessary evil, right? Because art literally shows you the propensity that humans and human nature have for good and the capacity that they have for evil, right? It is in and of yourself, in terms of your accountability matrix, to actually use this art to gauge where we actually want to evolve to or where we want to devolve to, because that is the only way in which we're going to actually know where we are and where we actually want to be as a society, right? Because what your proposition actually wants to do, right, is they want to divorce the subject matter from the subject, which is something that we can't allow to happen in this debate today, because art is not a standalone thing that just haphazardly exists in society, right? It comes from a place of passion, it comes from a place of inspiration, and it essentially comes from a place of culture, right, and experiences. And this is actually what we want to preserve in society, right? Because at any given point, right, even when they talk about deviant sexual behavior, we tell you that hormonally, as an individual growing up, even if you're not exposed to things like pornography, because of your biology as a human being, your hormones in and of themselves, as you grow up and as you mature, actually frustrate you to the point where you actually don't actually have to be exposed to that kind of material to actually want to engage in those kinds of behaviors, right? What we actually say is we value these behaviors, we value this art because it actually teaches us what not to aspire to. And this is what needs to be valued in today's debate. Thank you.
Thank you very much to the first speaker on the opposing side. Can we now welcome to the podium the second speaker on the opposing side, Amahle Mapalala.
My panel of judges, our beautiful audience, my esteemed opponents, and my fellow colleague, I greet you all. My name is Amahle Mapalala, second speaker of the proposition side. Now, our opposition side stood here today and actually told us about media that shows crime and not media that glorifies crime. Now, what they spoke about was media that shows now the downside of committing crime and bad behavior, and not media that glorifies crime. Now, once again, I would like to explain that the motion here today is about media that glorifies crime, which is what the proposition side is against. Well, also they spoke, the opposition side also spoke more about now art and not media. Once again, our motion is about media and not art as a whole. Not only that, the first speaker of the opposition side actually spoke about rejecting the distribution of such media, which is why we believe that they actually agree with us, because we also reject the distribution of this media. Hence, we want to ban such media in our country. The relationship between, with that being said, now the relationship between media and violence is broadened by the content and the imitations of violence brought about by media. Research shows that fictional television and films of violence contribute to both long-term and short-term increase in aggression and violence in young viewers. Much like how violence in television news contribute to the increase of violence in the forms of imitative suicide and act of aggression. We also believe that media brings about a form, violence glorifying media brings about a form of violence positivism in that it legitimizes violence. How so? So, for example, how video games portray criminal acts as good and rewardable activities. Moreover, exposure to such media or violence in media can desensitize individuals, as explained by my colleague. In our argument today, we have a vision to build a society that recognizes the dangers of exposing our young ones to violence glorifying media. Not only that, exposure to violence or criminal content can desensitize viewers, as aforementioned, making them tolerant to real life violence. We say that banning such media content will help in maintaining societal aversion to violence. I'm going to take your POI, sir.
You continue to want to divorce the subject matter from the subject. Please tell us how banning an image or specific media actually alters the state of mind of an individual, because we've already told you that the problem is actually society and not the specific individual.
I was going to explain that, but bear with me. Now, I'm going to answer your question, I'm going to explain now the short-term and long-term effect of violence glorifying media. We have what the National Library of Medicine in South Africa calls the priming method. What the priming method is where the mind of a person is shaped by what they see in media. So what happens when a mind of a person actually records what media says? For example, when a person watches maybe a thrill or an action movie, they see a gun as a bad or a very dangerous weapon. Hence, where they see police or security guards, they see them as very bad and dangerous people, making the society hostile to these people. Hence, we are trying to explain here today that banning these types of media that glorifies violence, not media that shows violence, but media that glorifies violence to the society, will actually decrease the influence that violence in media has on our younger generation. Moreover, such content can influence individuals, more specifically the youth, to mimic these actions. This is what, once again, taking points from the National Library of Medicine, calls the mimicry process. This is where one, for example, after watching a thrill or an action movie, one wants to act as a stereo of that movie. We've seen a lot of movies where a person is giving a very important role, a role where a person is maybe doing all this criminal activity doing all this criminal activity and not getting caught. This makes people think that they can outrun the law, hence wanting to maybe exercise these actions and actually leading to criminal life. Now, this leads to the effect of mimicry as explained. For example, in a South African ad show, there was a father who was arrested for having molested his own biological daughter for what he had seen happening in a pornography scene. Now, this is proof in itself that violence glorifying media has an impact on our society today. In addition, constant exposure to violence in media is closely linked with an increase to aggression, thoughts, feelings, and behavior in children. This leads to reduced social interactions. It hinders development of very important social developmental skills such as social skills, empathy, and cooperation. Constant exposure to violence or distressing content contributes to anxiety and depression. This leads to people adopting unsafe actions to protect themselves from the unknown. You will see a person locking themselves away from the world and carrying or using different weapons that can be harmful to them and the entire society. Not only that, it shortens attention span as they condition school children to experience rapid stimulation, making it more difficult for them to focus on longer and less stimulating tasks. This is why we believe that media should be violence glorifying media should be banned. Thank you.
Thank you very much to the second speaker on the proposing side. As you're listening to this, what are some of your thoughts? Send us your WhatsApp voice notes. You can send it to 0614 104 107. You can also give us a call, 086 000 2032, and we'll come to that very shortly. Do you agree so far in this debate with the proposing side, or do you agree so far in this debate with the opposing side? Again, the number you can send those WhatsApp voice notes to is 0614 104 107. And I want to welcome onto the podium now the second speaker from the opposing side, Olam Tokwe.
Okay. Okay, cool. So like in this debate currently, right, there's like a few things that like proposition is saying without actual like reasoning or proofing, right? One, they have to directly show us how like media in of itself, solely media, directly influences these people into committing these crimes panels. Because we think like, as Mess told you, we think like there's a lot of things that influence people, right? We think like things like how you're brought up, the values your family puts in you, and what you're taught as a person is a very important thing within your life, right? So now they have to show us how media and art in of itself actually has that same influence on you as a person, and how it actually like gets you to that point, right? We think that too, right? We think that secondly, things like violence, crime, behavior, and these sexual behaviors, like they have to also show like they only became so prevalent after the existence of such medias, right? We think that when we tell you about things like human nature, these things existed way before these times, right? We think that it's very important for you to understand that in society in of itself, what media and art fully and solely is a representation and a depiction of what we are right now, right? We think that in a world where this media and this representation doesn't exist, later, we think that in a world where this media and this representation doesn't exist, we don't have a true reflection of what society is, right? We think that that is a very much more harmful world than what we live in now. Because now we live in a world of denial. We're painting these beautiful pictures, these lovey-dovey love stories that we're only showing, and we're not showing like the real grimy stuff, right? We think that this glorification in of itself is like very like subjective, right? We think that when they say like glorification, we don't talk about glorification. It depends on the person what they glorify. Like, for example, a person will glorify a movie such as Scarface, where Scarface ended up being shot up at the end and dying, right? And some people will not glorify such things, right? We think like glorification is not a chat that we're here to defend. Glorification is like a very personal thing, or what you as a person aspire to, right? Okay, cool, right? Into more of my positive matter, I guess, right? So one, right? We think that the normalization of this directly leads, like this normalization, this media existing, directly leads to things like discourse, right? I think that one, discourse is a very important thing to have. So at a point in which you're like, hey, I'm seeing like these children, I'm seeing like people commit this violence, I'm seeing like this thing being portrayed on TV a lot, my kids are playing a lot of these video games, right? As a parent, you ask yourself, what kind of world am I raising my child in, right? I think that this is a very important question to ask, right? At a point in which you ask yourself, you're more likely to want to talk to other parents or other people that exist within this space. What that then does is that you are more like want to change, right? You want to actively change what's currently happening to the people, right? I think this is good, right? And we think this only happens at a point where this media exists within the world, right? We think that, let me just finish this point. We think that at a point where this discourse exists, this discourse happens, as a society we actually evolve, right? We think that we evolve past the point where we want to like glorify such things because we understand the inherent harm to them, to the people, right? And we think these things only happen at a point at which like we as society like actively know these things are happening and they are occurring. Yeah.
My question is: are you going against the panel? Gave us a motion that already in itself set parameters to be about media. What I'm asking is: are you going against the parameters and setting your argument solely based on art as a whole, or are you going to talk about media in itself?
No, we're talking about TV, we're talking about video games, we're talking about paintings, we're talking about everything in art related. Why is this important? We think that all of these things, as my first speaker said, are a representation of society. We don't think like Leonardo da Vinci painted a painting just because he woke up and felt like it. It was what was happening around him. At a point at which you produce these specific things, it's because you are actively exposed to this violence, right? I think that's what they're not getting. We think that at a point at which you're actively exposed to this thing, you're more likely gonna want to change it. And that's our stance basically in this debate, right? Last one.
You talked about human nature, right?
Yes.
Okay, back in the days where media was not prevalent, please compare the statistics of crime rate and the statistics of crime rate now.
We think like one, a lot of things influences crime, right? It means like more people are impoverished, more people need money, more people are starving, right? We think like crime has multiple layers. And you can't just say just because people saw a movie of people killing each other, they decided to go kill each other. We don't think that's a fair comparison within this world. But even if that's true, right? We think that at a point where we now actively show these things, people are more aware of them. They exist, right? As we've said and I've hammered on multiple times, if they're aware, no more. If they're aware these things exist, they're more likely to do something about it, right? We think that too, right? What meaningful change does this media actively existing within this world, right? We think like one, it incentivizes change, right? At a point at which you're seeing violence, you're seeing these crimes committed, you're more likely want to change. At a point which you do not see this crime happening, you're more likely to not be aware of it. And at a point where you're not aware of it, you're not likely to take it into consideration, right? This means that you're not doing things that actively want to help change or like make the situation better, right? We think that that's a worse off world. We think that that's a worse off world to exist in, right? We think that two, people reflect on what kind of like society image, what kind of image society has, right? We think that at a point where you actively reflect so much on what society, the image society has, you're more likely to do better, right? We think that in comparative between our case and their case, right? They're simply telling you like these things happen, these media has this influence, right? They're not showing you why this media is taken to a higher level than what you're taught at home and the responsibility you take as a human. And we've shown you one, why human nature is the root cause of this problem, but two, why this media is not the sole blame for this, right? We think that in our side of the world, we solve these issues, we look at these issues. We think on their side of the world, they just turn a blind eye and not do anything about it. And I think that's a worse off state to be in. Thank you.
And that is the second speaker on the opposing side. We're going to take a break very shortly, and I want to come back to your WhatsApp voice notes and maybe some of your calls. So send us a WhatsApp voice note on 0614 104 107. We're aware that there's been a break in transmission in certain instances on the feed. We do apologize for that. We'll try to ensure that we have a stable feed going forward. But you can also watch the debate on our YouTube channel, which is the SAFM YouTube channel. You can head on over to our Facebook page, which is just SAFM Radio, and you can watch the debate live over there. We're also streaming this debate live on Twitter. You can go over there. It's at SAFM Radio. What are some of your views and reactions to this debate? Give us a call, 086 000 2032. We're also taking a WhatsApp voice note on 0614 104 107. Just to remind you what the topic is in case you joined this broadcast a little late. The topic of discussion in this debate is as follows. Should we ban the production, circulation, and broadcasting of music, movies, art, and other forms of audio-visual media that normalizes and or glorifies violence, crime, and reckless sexual behavior? We've had on the proposing side the University of the Free State, and on the opposing side the Central University of Technology. Again, send us those WhatsApp voice notes on 0614 104 107. Let's take a short break. On the other side of this, we listen to your WhatsApp voice notes.
One might argue that the law ought to be separate from politics. But let's be honest, in the House today, that is not the truth in South Africa.
It's a case of power versus competence, right? Then when we're talking about this, we're actually speaking about the competence that the actual people in charge have, right?
Ladies and gentlemen, Parliament makes the law. The Constitutional Court has a final say on our law. They have framed the political, social, and economical freedoms of this country.
What does this actually mean? It means that the individuals, when they get to vote, the people in whom they actually allocate votes to represents them in spheres that the people could not actually be in.
Oliver and the debating teams. Oliver banning violent materials that glorifies reckless sexual behavior, drugs, not going to make it, never going to solve the problems. As we've seen during the apartheid era, pornography was banned, but what happened? It went into the black market, people were willing to pay premium for it, and the producers of this material became rich. So right now, if you're going to ban those materials, it's going to go into the internet. And unfortunately, you are never going to be able to regulate the internet. So best solution is for you to do is to let it be broadcast. Because if it goes to the internet, it's going to become rife. There's going to be a high demand for it. People are going to pay premium for it. And the people that you are wishing that you can run out of the business, they're going to become 10 times rich.
I definitely agree with the proposing side. Like, we have real live scenarios that can really show us that what people see on television changes society. If you visited a rural area, I'm from Kutendanem, before the place had electricity, it was a peaceful environment, everyone knew each other, very good kumbaya type of society. Then they had electricity, and then there was a TV show called Uzalo. The content portrayed on Uzalo is exactly mimicked in the community. Drug abuse, taverns, the likes, everything. We have our very own Uzalo happening right now. So it's definitely dangerous to society to expose them. Same as Yizo changed our society completely. I can't even begin to imagine the amount of damage that series did.
Evening, Oliver. Evening, the two guys were debating. Look, media does play an important role in how people behave. Actually, it is the stimuli that influence behavior in society. Hence, people are a product of their own societies. It plays a very key role in how people behave. Just opposed then and now, and look at the behavior then, when there was no media and TV, and today, where there's massive explosion of TV, where media has replaced parents and grandparents. Major from Guatemala.
Hi, good evening, Oliver. How are you, Mafuta? Oliver, your topic is very interesting, but the problem with the media that shows violent movies that affects people and make people believe is that there's no disclaimer to say what you're going to see is not real, don't do it. Because the purpose of the media, in fact, is to instill a feeling or a belief of truthness in whatever they show, whereby affecting people and youngsters in particular negatively. That's the problem, Oliver. I think that should be the argument for those who are against the media showing violent movies or whatever.
Hello, this is Anonymous from South Africa. I want to say Central University of Technology is killing it. It's killing it. Yes, sir, it's killing it at every stage and every step. Viva!
It seems like somebody had paid their relatives to send voice notes. Send us some more of your reactions on 0614 104 107. Let's go to the lines. Sally in Pretoria, good evening. Go for it.
Hi, my name is Sally.
Oh, Sally, my apologies. Go for it.
Sally, S-A-M-M-Y.
Okay, my apologies for that. Go for it.
Yes. Oliver, this proposal side that says that we must ban things like material that glorifies violence, reckless sexual behavior, and so on, they are missing it. You look at countries where people don't have access to this type of media. You look at the violence there. Look at countries like Afghanistan, North Korea. I can go on and on. The level of violence is extreme. Women are oppressed, but they don't have access to this type of material, do they? You look at what was happening during apartheid. Pornography was banned, wasn't it? But it was hiding demand. People were willing to pay like 300 rands for what people are paying like 20 rands right now. So you're gonna have this thing going to the black market. It's gonna go into the internet, the dark net, and unfortunately, we are never going to be able to regulate the internet. Never. So let it be broadcast, and people be educated about it.
Okay, Sammy, thank you so much for your call. Do appreciate it. Sure. Yeah, send us some more of your reactions on 0614104107. We're going to take a very short break. On the other side of that, we will hear the closing remarks from both sides, starting with side opposition, and closing off the debate will be the closing remarks from side proposition. All of that on the other side of this break.
The main problem that we have with this Western media argument is that proposition or government over-exaggerates the power that Western media has.
There's a specific streamline of information that happens when you have Facebook being located in one specific country.
The US government uses their specific associations and the media companies which belong in their countries to often indoctrinate their specific policies in different countries.
We say having these foreign equivalents in existence actually breeds a ground for more competition, right? Which is what we want to see, right? Even with our local social media platforms.
Challenge here on SAFM. My name is Oliver Dixon. Thank you so much for being with us. If you've just joined us, man, you've missed a fantastic debate. Side proposition being the University of the Free State, and side opposition being the Central University of Technology. We've now reached the end of the debate, where side opposition, rather, the opposing side, will give us their closing remarks for 3 minutes, and the side proposition will give us their closing remarks for 3 minutes. Thereafter, our esteemed judge will consider the remarks and the debate and give us a verdict of the winner. I want to welcome back onto the podium the reply speaker for the Central University of Technology as the opposing side, Masupa.
So, panel, comparatively, right, what you get from the proposing side is a side that actually wants to divorce the subject from the subject matter, right? And they actually don't also give us, in terms of real world implications, or what we like to refer to as the status quo, what actually banning these materials actually changes in society, right? Which is what we actually give you on our side when we tell you it actually changes nothing, because art is literally an extension of what we as human beings have put out there in the world and in society since the beginning of time, right? You get this sort of like general POI also during the debate from the proposition, where they ask like, oh, let's look at way back when there was no social media, where there was no general media, where there was no art depiction that actually showed these deviant acts. Like, what were the numbers then compared to what were the numbers now? It's essentially just a balance of like probabilities and proportionality, right? The problems at that time were to the scale of the population at that time, but the problems were still there. Now we're in a different aspect, we're in a different space, and the problems are more prevalent, right? We tell you from the proposition side, we don't regret the art. We actually value what the art teaches us in terms of culture, in terms of evolution, right? In terms of what it is to be accountable as a society. We tell you that we actually need these pictures, this media out there in the world so that we can also better ourselves, right? Because the entire argument is just like when you are watching SABC News and they give you an info session on Kazakhstan or on Palestine, South Africa is not just tomorrow going to wake up and go like, oh no, did you see what Israel is doing to Palestine? Let's go do the same to Zimbabwe. We tell you that humans are actually rational actors, right? And what we put in our art is actually what you gain from your lived experiences, right? Because what I actually just want to end off with, right? When you look at the music, the paintings, everything that we put in the world, your literature, right, as a depiction of society, as bad as it is, it actually shows us how far back we can go, and it actually teaches us how resilient we can become going forward. Because currently in the world, if you basically point at any place on the map where there is a major conflict, that conflict did not start because of a Leonardo DiCaprio movie. It did not start because of J. Cole's lyrics. It started because a human being decided that I want to go oppress that specific group of people, which is why we tell you that the art and the media are not the problem. We are the problem, and we need to start being accountable to ourselves. Thank you.
And now we will hear to close off the debate entirely, we will hear from the reply speaker of the proposing side, Romuwana Nare.
Greetings once again. As we conclude this debate, let us revisit to the heart of the argument, right? South Africa is a nation that continues to battle against crime and reckless sexual behavior. But in the other hand, we are permitting influence. We are permitting something that influences the younger generation into crime. I think people are missing the opposing side. They kind of missing our point. We are not saying media is the root cause, like how they say that humanity, nature, like it's the root cause of our violence, which is kind of wow. But if you are talking about these media as a form of influence, it plays a role into shaping perceptions of people, right? Into shaping perceptions of the young and impressionable, right? Let us also check about the propaganda. I think my colleague mentioned it. How the World War II started is how if they're defending themselves. It was through propaganda, and propaganda is a form of what? Media. Influence. We are not fighting against the causes. We are fighting against the influence that media has on people, on the younger generation. That is where our argument is rooted, right? This is not a hypothetical danger. It is a reality that is backed up by research and evidenced by the normalization of such behaviors in our communities. Someone came there, he mentioned the issue of the normalization of these behaviors in his or her community, right? So we, as the proposition side, we are saying, let us align our national values with our collective goal. Let us align our national value with our media values, right? What the media portrays must be also in alignment with what we as the country values the most, right? So let us draw the line, like we are saying, where freedom of expression, where we tell ourselves that it's human nature ends, then we begin societal responsibilities. Before I go and sit down, I want everyone who's sitting here to take a moment and think unto yourself now, what kind of a world do you want to live in? And what kind of a world do we want to leave our children to live in? One where harmful behaviors such as criminal activities are glamorized and normalized, or one where we take a stand against such actions and protect the future in order to produce a better and safer South Africa. Because we want a future We want South Africa that is more safer, where you can walk texting. Not you can just be scared. Now I can't walk texting because someone can come take my phone. Because such things have been seen in media through the influence that media has into shaping our behaviors and personalities. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And that is the end of the debate between the University of the Free State as well as the Central University of Technology. Our judge will now consider the arguments. And while our judge does that, we'll have a listen at some of your WhatsApp voice notes that has come through on our WhatsApp line. Let's have a listen at some of your WhatsApp reactions.
Good evening, Oliver, and your guests today. I support 100% ban of that content. It's more Western than African. It's disgusting. It's disgusting. You see on the screen people making love while they're sitting around the table with the kids eating. What does that teach my kids there? It's disgusting. Very, very much disgusting. Lisa from Brixton.
Great debate, but then the problem is with the speaker from you all. The problem is one thing. Why are you mostly focusing on what men did and not focusing on the experts of what women also do? Because it's typical to only blame men when society is also 50-50, where women also are held accountable for their actions.
Hello. But in South Africa, there are parental guardians, like age limit, you see. I'm here in Kiskamongo, Kobokobo. Sanchuba, I don't know what to say, man, but zingapheliswa for the underages.
Yeah, media, of course, have negative impact on lives of social life in general. You see these, our people mimic what they see there on your soapies, unfortunately. Really, these, your callers are not lying. It's like that. So it's not regulated. If it can be regulated, it would be just like China and North Korea and South Korea and Malaysia. They take no nonsense in regard to this. Control is strict. So, yeah, thanks, Willie.
Good evening, Oliver. I think we shouldn't ban media that is portraying violent acts or sexual acts, because um, the media is used as a medium to portray the message, which is the art. And doing doing that, if we ban that form of media, we will be creating more unemployment in the country. In our country already, we are already struggling with unemployment. So I think um, we should rather focus on the creative way of uh, portraying such acts, not to ban the media.
SAFM supports a litter-free South Africa. Play your part in keeping our surroundings and environment clean. SAFM, leading the conversation. This week, today, Fridays, 6 to 7 p.m.
We have now reached that critical point, that point where if you are one of these speakers sitting here, you're incredibly nervous because you're about to hear your fate, whether or not you've won or lost this debate. But like I always say, there are no winners and losers. There are only learning opportunities. I want to introduce our judge who will, in a very short period, give us their assessment of the debate and who the winners are. Veteran South African debater from the University of Limpopo, Karabo Maredi. How did you see the debate and who won? Please use the microphone. It's right on.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Great debate. Great debate, guys. I loved the topic, actually. I wish we had more time to explore it. However, as challenging as it was, I don't want to lose sight of the true reflection proposition brought that the media does contribute to the social ills of our country. However, we live in South Africa, a very democratic country, and we have in our constitution freedom of expression. Therefore, I will agree with our position that everything narrows down to human behavior. And with that said, I give opposition the winning.
Okay, congratulations to the Central University of Technology team opposition for winning this debate. Better luck next time to the University of the Free State. It's a very difficult topic, and for an opposition team to win such a debate, I think is a true reflection of both teams' intensity and their dexterity in being able to iron out and flesh out some of these difficult points. Of course, this is not the end of the road for the SAFM University Debate Challenge. We're in the Northwest next, and that will be... no, my apologies. We're not in the Northwest next. Of course, we continue this debate on the road. We will get to the Northwest at some point, I think. The team reminded me today where our next debate is, and it just had escaped my mind. Our next debate will be in October. Actually, it will be in the Northwest. It will be between the Vaal University of Technology up against the Northwest University. I am excited for that one in October. I'm looking forward to coming out to the Northwest and engaging on that. To all the debaters here in the Free State that came out, participated, and in this debate, thank you very much. Really do appreciate it. I had a great deal of fun. To yourself listening, it has been an absolute pleasure listening to you. And that's it from me here. You can catch me this weekend, not on Saturday, but on Sunday on SABC News as I broadcast you the full view once again. And of course, Sunday evening, I bring you another episode of Democracy 30 on SABC News channel 404. From myself, Oliver Dixon, it's goodbye for now. Cheers.
If you're active on social media and love SAFM, we hope you'll take a moment to like or follow our SAFM page on Facebook and Twitter. These are the best places to find all the guest information, conversations, and stories you love from your favorite presenters, along with regular updates from SABC News. And don't forget, you can send your questions to feedback@safm.co.za. SAFM, leading the conversation.
Deal reached on broadcasting box match and court rules in SABC GNU matter. Good evening. We begin with news just in. SABC will broadcast the Springboks vs All Blacks rugby match live tomorrow at 5 p.m. at Ellis Park in Johannesburg. We'll have more details on that in our next update. In other news, former President Jacob Zuma and the MK Party's challenge of the SABC's use of the term Government of National Unity or GNU has been struck for want of urgency in the High Court in Johannesburg. The applicants, Zuma and the MK Party, have further been directed to seek a special allocation. This follows the court's judgment today, which revealed that the court wasn't satisfied that the matter can be dealt with in the urgent court or that it's in the interest of justice to deal with this matter